Hello. Today I'm going to go over the forms for filing for a non-domestic sexual assault personal protection order. So this video will show you where to get the forms and how to complete them. You would be filing for a non-domestic sexual assault personal protection order in a number of scenarios. So most commonly, if somebody has threatened you with sexual assault or if somebody has sexually assaulted you. Um, Other reasons is if they have been actually convicted of sexually assaulting you, so going through that entire criminal process and then being found guilty of sexually assaulting you. You might file this type of a personal protection order on behalf of a minor child to protect that minor child from somebody who has shown them obscene materials, things like pornography, pictures, explicit photos, that sort of thing, or if they've been convicted of doing that. So you would not file for the non-domestic sexual assault personal protection order if you've ever had a dating relationship with the person that you're filing against, or if you have ever resided in the same household as the person you're filing against, or if you are or were married to that person, or if you have a child together with that person. This type of form, which you'll see in the petition, you're actually saying you've never had any of that type of relationship with the person. If you have had that type of a relationship with the person you're filing against, and it does involve some sort of sexual assault, threatened sexual assault, or that furnishing obscene material to a minor, then you would need to file for a domestic personal protection order. Okay, so let's get to the forms. This page that you're seeing here is the main page for our website, which is eveinc.org, eveinc.org. EVE stands for End Violent Encounters, and we are a domestic violence and sexual assault organization in Lansing, Michigan. And EVE runs the Personal Protection Order Office in Ingham County. So if you're at the main page, what you're going to do is hover over Services, and then underneath Personal Protection Order Office, actually let's go down. We're just going to go to the page that has the forms because I'm going to show them all to you. So click on PPO forms. And then you're on the page where you can find all of the paperwork for PPOs. Down at the bottom here is the paperwork you're going to need for the sexual assault PPO, the non-domestic sexual assault PPO. If you are filing against a person in this scenario who is between the ages of 10 and 17 years old, you're going to be filing for a non-domestic sexual assault PPO against a minor. So that would be the forms that are to the right of the ones that we're going to be looking at today. So the first form I'm going to show you is the petition. This is the form you use to ask the judge to grant you a personal protection order. In this document here, all you're going to need is that third page right here. So if you're printing off your forms, filling them out in pen, scanning them back in, or bringing them to the courthouse, all you really need to print off on this first document is page 3. And you're going to start up at the top with letter A. You are the petitioner, so that's going to be your information there. So I'm just going to make up a petitioner here. Your age, your address, now when you're, it also asks for your telephone number. this section, and then there's an identical section on the next form we're going to look at, asking for your address and phone number. You are required to provide the court with a mailing address. It does not have to be where you're living, but it does have to be an address where you can receive mail. So, and why I'm emphasizing this is because when you file for the personal protection order, you are opening up a public court file. And if the PPO is granted, the other person that you're filing against will need to get a copy of everything that's been filed, so that person will be able to see anything you put in these documents. So that can make it difficult if that person doesn't know your address, because you can't just leave that section blank. They could actually deny the personal protection order for leaving that section blank. So sometimes, a person can receive mail at a workplace. Maybe that person knows where you work and you want to list your workplace instead. If you have a PO box, or if you are able to go out and rent a PO box, I know that's not feasible for everybody, but you could use a PO box where you could get mail, for example. And I would encourage you, if you're filing for this type of a PPO, and you're struggling with that address section because the person doesn't know where you live and you don't want them to know where you live, to reach out to one of us at Eve, and we can help you with that. So your phone number, they do ask for that, but you can leave that off. So if the person doesn't know your phone number, just leave that section blank. Okay, and then the next part of A is the respondent's information. This is the person that you're filing against, and that person's age. If you know it, you're going to list that person's address, and if you have it, their phone number or phone number, so whatever information you might have. If you have none of it, you could leave this section blank. You don't have to know where that person is living in order to file for a PPO against them. You do need to know either their age or date of birth, as well as their sex and their race, and their first and last name. So those are the required pieces of information you need to have about the other party. But let's say if you do know their address, go ahead and list it. Okay, you're just going to read number 1 here and just make sure that it's true. So the petitioner and respondent, you and the other person, have never been husband and wife, never resided in the same household together, do not have a child in common, and have not had a dating relationship with one another. So you just want to make sure that that's true. All of those are true. B2, if you know that the respondent, the other party, if you know that that person is required to carry a firearm for their job, you're going to check box 2. If you're not sure, there's an unknown. And if you know for sure that that person is not required to carry a firearm for their job, then you're going to leave B2 blank. C3 is a section where the court wants you to list any court cases between the parties that the parties have together. So this might be a criminal case, for example, where one party is the defendant, the other party is the victim. It might be an old personal protection order case, or another personal protection order case, or maybe a civil case, landlord, tenant, something like small claims, that sort of thing. So let's just pretend that there are a couple of court cases between the parties so I can show you how to fill out this section. And if there aren't any, of course, you're going to check or not. But let's say there is a criminal case pending, so an open criminal case. That would go in section C3A. So you'd list your case number, which you can typically find at the top right-hand corner of most court documents. And you're going to list the court that it's currently pending in. So let's say this one is in the 54A District Court in Ingham County, Michigan. And we're just going to make up a judge name. Let's say also that the parties had had maybe a previous personal protection order case in 2018. So we'd list that here. Let's say that was in this courthouse where you're filing, the 30th Circuit Courthouse in Ingham County, Michigan. And again, we'll just make up a judge. Honorable Jones. Okay. So that's how you fill out section C3A. Section D4, you have to check one of these boxes to explain to the judge why you are filing for this type of a personal protection order. So there are 4 possibilities for why you would be filing for a non-domestic sexual assault personal protection order. So either I need a personal protection order because A, the respondent has been convicted of sexual assault against me. And then in that case, they want you to put the case number for that criminal case in section C3B. Sorry, B. Okay. Or box B, I need a non-domestic sexual assault PPO because I am a minor child, and the respondent has been convicted of furnishing obscene material to me in violation of Michigan Statute 750.142 or a substantially similar law from another jurisdiction, like another state or tribal court. And then again, they would want you to insert the case number for that conviction up above. Or C, which I would say is very often the most common box checked for these. I have a reasonable apprehension of sexual assault because the respondent has sexually assaulted me or threatened me with sexual assault. And they say, explain what has happened. Of course, they don't give you any room in this document to do that. We'll go over your statement. That'll be a separate document or a written out statement or typed out statement that you do, but we'll go over that later in the video. The last option is D. I am a minor child, and the respondent has furnished obscene material to me. Explain what has happened. So basically, C and D are very similar to A and B, except A and B are scenarios where an actual conviction has occurred for that crime. Okay, so E5. E5 is where you're going to go through. You've got all of these boxes under E5. You're going to go through and check whatever boxes you want the respondent to be prohibited from doing to you in the future. So if you check the first box, you're asking that the person be prohibited from entering onto the property where you live. And, maybe you put a P.O. box up here. It doesn't matter. You don't need to list that address for them anywhere if they don't know that address. They just cannot come to wherever you're living. You can ask that the person be prohibited from entering onto the property at some specific location, some specific address. Maybe they know like a community center or something that you go to frequently. Maybe that's how you knew that person. You don't want them to be allowed to go there. So you could write that in with the address. Okay, so you can say I want them to be prohibited from entering onto the property at Springfield Community Center, 456 South Main Street, Springfield, Michigan, 48910. And that would be you asking them to be prohibited from that location for the entire course of the PPO, whether you're at that location or not. If the judge puts that in an order of protection, that person is not allowed to be at that property. And then the same goes for your house. You don't have to be at home. They can't come to your property regardless of where you are in the moment. If you're at work, it doesn't matter. The next box, you can ask that the person be prohibited from threatening to sexually assault, kill, or physically injure you or another named person. So if you wanted to, for example, You can imagine maybe a scenario where that person has threatened to sexually assault you and kill your minor child, for example. So maybe you want to put that minor child's name onto that line. You can ask that the person be prohibited from purchasing or possessing a firearm. You can ask that that person be prohibited from interfering with your efforts to remove your children and or your personal property from premises that are solely owned or leased by the respondent. So if you, for example, had some personal property at that person's house and you wanted to be able to get it back, you could ask the judge to prohibit the respondent from interfering with your efforts to get your personal property back. You can ask that the person be prohibited from interfering with you at your place of employment or education, or just engaging in conduct that impairs your employment or educational relationship or environment. You can ask that the person be prohibited from following you. The judges in Ingham County will usually cross out appearing within your site because they feel like it's too difficult to prevent people from randomly bumping into each other. But you can ask that they be prohibited from following you, so you just check that box. You can ask that the person be prohibited from approaching or confronting you in a public place or on private property, from appearing at your workplace or residence. So their workplace is covered and you don't necessarily have to provide the location of where you work to that person. If they don't know it, you just check that box and you're asking that they not be allowed to come to your workplace wherever you're working. You can ask that that person be prohibited from entering onto or remaining on property owned, leased, or just occupied by you. So if you ever did find yourself in the same place at the same time with that occupied box, the respondent would have to turn around and leave. It wouldn't matter who got there first. You can ask that the person be prohibited from contacting you by telephone, from sending mail or electronic communications to you, from placing an object on or delivering an object to property owned, leased, or occupied by you. You can ask that that person be prohibited from posting an electronic message with the intent to cause others to contact you in a way that would make you feel terrorized, frightened, intimidated, threatened, harassed, or molested. And then the last box under 5 is like an other box. So you can ask that the person be prohibited from doing any other specific act or conduct that imposes upon or interferes with your personal liberty or that causes you a reasonable apprehension of violence or sexual assault as follows. Maybe posting explicit photos of you, the petitioner, online, something like that, right? Now, box F6. If you check this box, you are asking the judge to, you're asking for an ex parte order, and that means that the judge will make a decision within 1 business day of you filing for the personal protection order. And the judge will decide whether or not to grant the personal protection order without a court hearing and without input from the respondent at all. So without having to give any kind of advance notice to the person that you're filing against that person, and without having to wait a number of days for a court hearing to take place. So that's box 6. And then 7, you're going to leave blank unless you are filing on behalf of either a minor child, asking for that minor child to be protected. So they would be the protected party. Or if you're filing on behalf of a legally incapacitated adult, so an adult who's under a legal guardianship and can't sign legal documents on their own. So if those are not the situation, though, you're going to leave G7 blank. And then you're going to date and sign at the bottom. And then I'm noticing that this signature you cannot fill in online right now. So what I would say that you would need to do, if right now during the coronavirus, which is when I'm filming this video, you are going to be filing either through email or fax, which right now at least Ingham County Court is allowing, and you can't print off the document, sign it, and scan it back in, then what you'll want to do is you'll want to save this document as a PDF. And that's, I've noticed in playing around with things lately, and I'm not super techy, but it's a little different based on what kind of browser you're using. So right now with Safari, what I would end up doing is I would say that I want to print this document, but then down here, I would look for something that allows me to save it as a PDF. So right here, I can say save as PDF. And in fact, I wouldn't even want to save all of these pages because I really know that I just need page 3. So I would say that, pretend that I was going to print page 3, but then I would go down, save as PDF. Once you have gotten to your saved PDF, then you should be able to, and again, you might just have to play around with how your PDF, what version of things are you using, but somewhere around here with the pen function, you should be able to type your name in. And actually right now, so the court is, during the coronavirus, the court is accepting electronic signatures. That's not typically the case, but how you would do an electronic signature, do a /s/ and then type your name. And that has been sufficient for the court right now. Okay, so that is the first document, the petition for a personal protection order. The next document that I'm going to go over, so I'm back on the website, is the sexual assault order. So click on that, and what you need to print off for this document is the first 2 pages, or submit if you're not going to print. But all you're filling out is a very small portion of page 1, so you're not going to be filling out most of page 1. You're not going to be filling out any of page 2, but they do want you to submit that blank proof of service right there. So going back to page 1, all you're going to be completing is A and B at the top. So you're not going to date, sign, or check any boxes below, just A and B. And then this is just very similar to what we filled out in the petition. So it's going to be your information as the petitioner, again, with whatever address you're using that you feel okay with that person having access to, being able to see. Versus the person that you're filing against. Trying to remember what address I used there. Sorry about that. 234. I'm noticing actually when I'm not able, when I type the address in for petitioner, I need to actually fit it onto one line because it wasn't, that second part wasn't showing up. Okay. B, you can see B is, you can kind of see this dark bolded line. It's everything on this bottom row here is going to be about the respondent, about the person you're filing against, not about you. So don't put your own height and weight and things like that down. If you don't know those about the other person, you can leave those blank unless you feel like you can be pretty accurate. The things that you do have to list have the little asterisks after them. So you have to put down that person's race, sex, and either their date of birth. If you don't have their exact date of birth, you have to provide an accurate age. And I know that that can be very tricky to obtain sometimes. Again, I would encourage you to reach out to an Eve advocate. Maybe we can, kind of talk to you about it, but those are required for filing for a PPO. And then if you know the other information, go ahead and put it down. Okay. Other identifying information, typically we think of things like scars and tattoos. So, you know, might be something like that. And that's all you're going to do on this document. So that's pretty quick as long as you've got the information, which again, I know can be sometimes the most difficult part. So then if we go back to the website, our next document that I'm going to lead you through is the questions for petitioner. Now, this is another document, unfortunately, where you cannot just type things in. It's not a fillable form right now. So you're going to have to go through saving it as a PDF again and using the pen function to be able to kind of write things in with your mouse or type things in once it's saved as a PDF. But what you're going to be filling in on this form is this top half right here that you're seeing. So you're going to put your name as petitioner. Again, the person you're filing against is the respondent. And then they want you to answer these top 4 questions here. So does the respondent live in Ingham County? That's the person you're filing against. Yes, no, not sure. If no, what county do they live in? So you're going to write that county if it's not Ingham on that line. Question 2, what police department would respond to your home? So that's if you were to call 911, which police department would show up to your house? So is it Lansing Police Department? Is it East Lansing Police Department, Lansing Township, Ingham County Sheriff's Office, Clinton County Sheriff's Office, whatever it is, you're going to list it there. Question 3, is respondent employed as a police officer? Yes or no? If yes, what police department do they work for? And last question, is respondent employed with the Department of Corrections? Yes or no? And then you're not going to do anything on this bottom section here. That's for the clerks. If you're having a hard time with this form, like getting it into a PDF, at this point in time, again, during the coronavirus, when things are kind of, everything's happening a little different, the court's a little more lenient with things, you can always type these, petitioner questionnaire in a Word document, parties' names at the top, and answer those 4 questions for the court so that they've got the answers to those questions that they need. Okay, so the next PPO form we're going to go over is the case inventory addendum. And this form you can fill out online. This is a mandatory form. It might be a really quick and easy form for you. So they want you to list if there are any family division cases between the parties. Mostly you should not have any family division cases with the other party if you're filing for a non-domestic PPO, because you shouldn't, for example, have been married to that person or have children together with that person. But family division cases also include old personal protection orders. And like we had put in the petition, they did have a prior PPO, so I'm going to fill that in so you see what that page looks like. Regardless of whether you have family division cases with that other party, you're still going to turn in this form, so everybody still needs to put down the party's names up at the top. So now they're calling the petitioner the plaintiff in this form versus the defendant or the respondent. And just leave in the matter of blank. And then they did have that prior PPO in 2018, so we're going to say that it was in this court. Say it was the same, it was the current petitioner against the, it wasn't reversed or anything. It was still Homer versus Ned. Let's get that case number. I think I had said it was Honorable Jones was the judge, and that's a resolved case. It's not open anymore. Okay, so that's how you fill out this form. And then you're going to date and sign at the bottom of this form. Again, regardless of whether you have any cases to list, you're still going to date and sign at the bottom of this form. And if you're going to do that electronic signature, again, you can do the /s/ and then write your name. Okay, so that's that form. Pretty quick. Next, what you'll need to do is you'll have to write a statement for the court about why you need the PPO. So this is where you'll let the judge know basically what occurred to require you to need a personal protection order against this person. And I know, you know, with many things, but especially with sexual assault, this can be a not a very pleasant experience to have to go through and kind of rehash what happened. You know, if you need an advocate to help you with it, maybe you're working with somebody, and take your time, you know, provide as many details as you feel comfortable providing. Nobody's going to force you to write out every single detail if that's not what you want to do. So I would say one thing that's important is, you know, making clear if there was, for example, a sexual assault, making clear that there was a sexual assault, if you can provide just at least a little bit about what type of sexual assault, and then making clear in your words that this was without your consent. So even if you just say this was without my consent, that way the judge knows. It sounds like it should be obvious, but the judges, they really require you to, you know, they're not going to make any guesses about anything. So they need you to really spell it out. If you would like, you can use our petitioner statement packet, which you'll find it's that first one under general paperwork for all PPOs. I'll click on that. Again, right now, this is not a fillable form, so if you wanted to type out your statement and use this packet, what you'd need to do is save it as a PDF, as we've already kind of gone over in some other forms. I'll just go over this packet with you a little bit, kind of give you some couple more tips for filling out a statement. In case you want to use this, or you can type out a statement in a Word document, for example. If you're going to write out a statement, just make sure that it's on like a regular size, computer size sheet of paper in black or blue ink, and single-sided sheets only. So if you run out of space, keep going on to single-sided sheets of paper. Don't write on the back of any forms. So if you're going to use this form, you're going to put down petitioner versus respondent up at the top. Leave case number blank. You don't have one yet. And then here's just a reminder that things are not going to be kept confidential from the other party. So don't put down any information that you don't want that person to have. And then question 1 in this packet will give you space to write about up to 4 separate events. So it goes on to the 3rd page, giving you spaces that look like this. And you're writing about things that that person has done to threaten, assault, stalk, harass you, intimidate you, that sort of thing. We recommend, if there has been more than one event that you're going to describe, that you talk about the most recent event and work your way backwards in time. That way the judge will know, you know, why you're filing for a PPO now, for example. Be as specific as you can remember regarding dates and locations. And if you can't remember the exact date of an event you're going to talk about, just as close as you can remember. That might be the month and the year. That might be the season in the year. If you remember about how long ago it was, you could write something in like that, like about 2 weeks ago. And then when you're talking about what happened on that occasion, write in full sentences so the judge knows who was doing what, and provide those specific facts and details of that person's words and behavior, again, to the extent that you're comfortable providing those details. But that way the judge will know, you know, again, to the extent that you're comfortable, exactly what that person said or did to threaten you, assault you, stalk, harass you, intimidate you, that sort of thing. And then there are questions to answer after each event. So like I said, this packet gives you space to write about up to 4 separate events. You don't have to write about a full 4, or if you were going to write about more than 4, just add extra sheets of paper, or if you ran out of space writing about an event, go on to an extra sheet of paper. Again, don't write on the back or anything. Even if you are typing out or writing out your own statement and not using this packet, the next few questions could be helpful to put somewhere in your own statement, or the answers to these next few questions. So how have these incidences made you feel? Sometimes it's helpful for the judge to know, even if you're just using kind of like single words, just to describe how you've been feeling. Why do you want the judge to grant the PPO ex parte? So again, without a court hearing, without notice to the other party, letting the judge know why you don't want to have to wait for a hearing, why you don't want to have to provide the other party with notice that you're filing for a PPO against this person before you've actually gotten your decision back. And then always good too for the judge to know how you know the respondent. So is this a coworker, a neighbor, friend, stranger? How do you know this person? 5, I just want to point out, is an example of not giving the other person information you don't want them to have. So question 5 asks you about your children's information. It asks you to list your children's names, their dates of birth, the name of their other parent. And if the person you're filing against doesn't have that information, I would say don't list it. That's an example of, don't give them information that you don't want them to have. This question does say, you're only supposed to put that stuff down if it's really relevant. If for some reason it's a part of the PPO or the facts. So just wanted to point that out, just an example of not giving that person more information than you want them to have. Okay, so, and then regardless again of whether or not you use this packet, whatever form your statement comes in, you'll want to date and sign your statement, affirming that it's written in your words that it's true. So, okay, so that is the paperwork that you'll need in order to file for a PPO. If you had any attachments that you wanted the judge to look at, anything has to be on paper. It can't be like a recording or anything like that. But if you've got, attachments of anything, criminal case dockets or screenshots of text messages, whatever it is, you can attach those as well. They just have to be on a sheet of paper, or pieces of paper. And then just keep in mind that the other person would also get a copy of those attachments. So redact, white out anything on those, if it's a call log of them calling you, but then somebody else called you, and you didn't want them to have that other person's phone number, white that person's phone number out first on your attachment, for example. But otherwise, that's the paperwork that you would need to file for a non-domestic sexual assault personal protection order. All right, thanks for listening.